Welcome to the Sports Investor Podcast, where it's all about smart sports betting. Here is your host, Professor MJ.
Hello NFL fans, how are you doing today? I'm feeling great. Welcome to episode number 9 of the Sports Investor Podcast. In case you are a first-time listener, my name is Professor MJ. I'm a statistics university professor from Quebec City in Canada. Nice to meet you. My NFL picks went 1-3 over the first 2 weeks of the season, before proceeding to go 10-2 over the last 2 weeks. So my overall record now stands at 11-5, which is just below a 70% success rate. Yahoo! Here's one important thing I've learned throughout my sports investing career. Never get too excited about your winning streaks, and never get overly depressed over your slumps. So let's keep a cool head and do our best to continue our winning ways on week number 5 in the NFL. Pick number 1. Colts -1 against the 49ers. There's a lot to like about this play. First of all, this match is going to be San Francisco's third road game over their past 4 contests. Also a second in a row. Secondly, the game will be played at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, which amounts to 10 a.m. for a 49ers team coming all the way from the West Coast. Thirdly, the Colts were doing well in Seattle last Sunday night before completely collapsing near the end of the third quarter, en route to a 46-18 loss.
You have got to be kidding.
In my opinion, teams that get crushed tend to rebound the following week because of better focus and attention to details when executing plays. My fourth argument is the fact that each team's 2 non-conference road games are probably the least motivating matches of the season, because the playoff implications are not as vital, and there's usually no rivalry. Sure, the same could be said with respect to the home team, but playing in front of your crowd keeps your mind more focused. My final justification is this. The 49ers are coming off 3 games in which they faced their division opponents. So is a letdown possible here? In injury news, 49ers running back Carlos Hyde was limited in practice because of a hip injury, but he should be good to go. Meanwhile, Indy's starting tight end Jack Doyle should also be in the lineup despite being limited because of a concussion. The action is fairly split between the 2 teams, with slightly more bets coming on the Colts. For what it's worth, which is probably not much, Indy has won the last 3 matchups against the Niners by an average of 16 points. Pick number 2. Browns picke'em against the Jets. I also like this pick a lot. Some people expected the Jets to go 0-16 this season, but they are surprisingly sitting on a 2-2 record after beating Miami 20-6 and Jacksonville 23-20 in overtime. I do expect a letdown from the Jets following those 2 wins that may make them feel too good about themselves. Add in the fact that New York may be looking ahead to its games against New England, Miami, Atlanta, and Buffalo, their 3 divisional opponents, plus a very strong Falcons team. And you now have a nice recipe for a trap game when facing a 0-4 team. In their first home game, the Browns did well in a 21-18 loss to Pittsburgh. However, the wheels came off last week in a 31-7 beating against the Bengals. They won't let the same thing happen 2 times in a row at home against a very beatable opponent. Cleveland may also be looking for revenge following a 31-28 home loss to those same Jets in 2016. As a contrarian, I like the fact that 70% of gamblers are taking New York. Grab the Browns, please. Pick number 3. Jaguars plus 8.5 points at the Steelers. Generally speaking, I like betting teams coming off a bad loss facing a team coming off a great win. That's exactly the case here. After looking great in London against Baltimore, the Jags lost in overtime to the lowly Jets last week. As for the Steelers, they must be feeling good about themselves after handling easily their arch rivals in Baltimore. Notice how this could be seen as a sandwich game for Pittsburgh, since they were playing the Ravens last week and are traveling to Kansas City next week. A setback is possible. Close to 55% of the bets are going Pittsburgh's way. I'm a bit worried about the status of wide receiver Marquise Lee, who may not be able to play because of a rib injury. Pick number 4. Giants minus 3 points against the Chargers. As was the case for my first pick, we've got a team from the West traveling 3 time zones to play at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And once again, we're talking about a non-conference road game. The Chargers may also be looking ahead to matches against Oakland, Denver, and New England over their next 3 contests, albeit you might argue it's less likely to happen to a team whose record is 0-4, because can they really afford to look ahead? Still, this is not a super exciting game for them on the road. Notice that both Odell Beckham and Brandon Marshall are expected to be in the lineup despite injuries. The Giants' offense has shown significant signs of improvement over the last couple of weeks. Pick number 5. Bengals minus 3 points against the Bills. One of the biggest surprises in the NFL thus far, the Buffalo Bills, are traveling to Cincinnati this week. Their defense has been very impressive by allowing just 13.5 points per game. Buffalo is the only team who has beaten Denver and Atlanta, who are both at 3-1. That being said, their offense is far from spectacular, as shown by their 18.25 points per game average. They've taken good care of the ball so far, and have not turned the ball over many times. Losing their leading wide receiver Jordan Matthews will hurt a lot, considering they were already very thin at this position. Look at their top 5 players in terms of receptions in 2017. 21 receptions by LaShawn McCoy, 18 by tight end Charles Clay, 10 by wide receiver Jordan Matthews, 6 by wide receiver Andre Holmes, and 4 by rookie wide receiver Zay Jones. Who will step up its game? I highly doubt Holmes or Jones can do it, especially Jones, who has been targeted 17 times but only caught 4 of them, which is just plain awful. Meanwhile, the Bengals just keep improving, and you could see an immediate change after they fired their offensive coordinator before week number 3, where they lost a heartbreaker in overtime in Green Bay. They played pretty well in this game and deserved a better fate. Then, they went on to defeat the Browns very easily on the road by a 31-7 score, they seem to be on the rise. So basically, I'm expecting a letdown by the Bills, following their 2 huge victories against Denver and at Atlanta. They will also be playing a 3rd road game over their past 4 contests, and a 2nd straight. The Bengals could be looking for payback from a 16-12 home loss against those same Buffalo Bills last season. I'm crossing my fingers since he won't be looking ahead to its key matchup at Pittsburgh next week. I'm happy to see that more than 60% of the bets are going on Buffalo. Pick number 6, Ravens plus 2.5 points at the Raiders. The big topic here is Derek Carr being out for the Raiders. He will be replaced by E.J. Manuel. The former first-round pick by the Bills is bad. I don't know any other way to put it. Over the course of his career, he has thrown 19 TD passes against 16 interceptions, while completing just 58.5% of his passes. I find it amazing how often he throws interceptions when trying to lead his team to a late rally. He did it many times with Buffalo, and he did it again with the Raiders last week. His pocket awareness is very bad. He doesn't seem to feel the pressure coming. His career QB rating is just 76.9. The motivation behind this pick goes beyond Manuel, of course. The Ravens are coming off a couple of very bad losses. 44-7 in London against the Jags, and 26-9 at home against their rivals from Pittsburgh. I'm confident they will rebound in a hostile environment, despite having to travel 3 time zones. They will also be looking for revenge following a 28-27 home loss to Oakland in the previous season. This week's game against the Ravens is sandwiched between games against all 3 of the Raiders' divisional opponents, so they may not be super pumped for this game, especially after losing their starting quarterback to an injury. Pick number 7, Patriots minus 5 points at the Bucs. After losing at home 42-27 to the Chiefs, the Patriots rebounded nicely with a 36-20 win over the Saints. I expect the same pattern to repeat this week, following a surprising 33-30 home loss to the Carolina Panthers. Playing a primetime game also helps get your focus back. When Bill Belichick gets mad, his team usually finds a way to play great. One of my followers, Jeff Loop, came up with a great stat. Belichick is 36-13 against the spread after a loss. That's simply amazing. Thanks a lot for the insight, Jeff. Another major factor going in favor of the Pats is how banged up the Bucs' pass defense is, which is very bad news when facing Tom Brady and company. Linebackers Lavonte David and Quan Alexander are out, while strong safety TJ Ward is doubtful. Okay, now here are a couple of final thoughts. Though not an official pick, I'm leaning towards Dallas minus 2 points against the Packers, following a disappointing home loss to the Rams last week, while Green Bay cruised easily against a weak Bears team. Also, the Cowboys had probably circled that game a long time ago, since being eliminated by the Cheeseheads last year. I decided to stay away from that game, mainly because of the 3 extra days of rest for McCarthy's squad. The Packers have suffered many injuries thus far, and the status of many of them is unclear at the moment. The line on Minnesota-Chicago's Monday night game is currently off the board. Mitch Trubisky will be making his NFL debut for the Bears. Depending on what the spread is, I will either stay away or bet Chicago. Why? First of all, Chicago will benefit from 3 additional days of rest after playing the Thursday night game on week number 4. Secondly, this could be viewed as a sandwich game for the Vikes after playing Detroit and facing Green Bay next week. I'm aware that Chicago is also a divisional game for Minnesota, but a matchup against the Bears is not as exciting. Also, I expect Chicago to rebound after a poor outing in Green Bay last week. So that concludes this session with my week number 5 picks in the NFL. But before you go, may I ask you to do me a favor? If you enjoy the free work I publish on a regular basis and feel like thanking me without having to spend a single penny, could you please rate and review this podcast on the platform you are listening from? So if you are on iTunes or Stitcher, I would greatly appreciate if you could rate the podcast and leave a little comment. It will only take 1 minute and it does make a big difference for me. Thanks a lot, guys. So that's it for today. I wish you good luck on your plays this week, and let's hope our sports investments will yield a good profit. Bye bye.